Friday I handed back the research paper tablet proposals. Each of you did an excellent job in choosing your topics, but some of you do need to narrow down your topic to be more specific so that you can find those credible sources. Today we are going to be looking at how to find a credible source and make sure that it is credible. In addition to this, we are going to make sure that we know how to defend our research topic by presenting both arguments for and against it. So, what makes a credible source? First, we want to look at where it was published. If it was published in a peer-reviewed journal, which means it is a scholarly article, it tends to be credible. This means that someone who is at the same level or above the author has looked at it and deemed it credible for the website and or organization it was posted. For an online website, you want to look for .org, .gov, or .edu. These tend to be the most credible sources, but you definitely want to make sure that you look at all possibilities as to why it is a credible source. Books need to be made sure that they are not out of date. Just because it was published 20 years ago by a credible publisher does not mean that it is still credible. Furthermore, we want to look to make sure there is bibliography. This means that the author has used outside sources to support themselves, just like we will with our own research papers. Not only do we want to make sure that there is a bibliography, we want to make sure that this bibliography contains credible sources. So by doing this, we will look at what the sources are and go to the sources that they have used, and they can even become sources for yourself. Next, we want to look at when the article or the website or book was published. The relevancy of the source does depend on when the topic was at its peak. If a topic was at its peak 20 years ago, then the sources are most likely more credible 20 years ago. But generally, topics are not at their peak 20 years ago because technology has given us further advances with what we can do with our research. With this in mind, we want to make sure our sources tend to be no more than 10 years old. This is the best guideline to look at to make sure that you have the most credible source. Next, we want to look at who wrote the source that you are looking at. If a professor or university wrote the source, then it means that it is likely a scholarly article and someone in the field has looked at it to make sure that it is credible. Institutions do not always equal credibility. This is because if someone works for a for-profit organization, they may begin to have a bias. If we find that an author has not written anything else within the field that they are talking about for this topic, then they may not be as credible as someone who has written many other things and has been highly regarded for that. And lastly, we want to make sure our author is objective rather than subjective. This means that they look at both sides of the argument to make sure that they don't leave out any important details that may or may not mess up their argument. So, let's take a look. This is a website regarding the Pacific Northwest tree activists. We want to look at as to whether or not this website is credible. So first we're going to look at the fact that it is a .net website. And now we have it set to the About tab. But this is about the octopus rather than the author of the website. On the first picture to the left, we have the links to sites that are similar to this one. And on the bottom, we have sightings of the tree octopus. So does this seem credible to you? Take a moment to think whether or not this is, and why. So, it's not. But why? The organization of the and author of the website are not listed. We have an entire About tab, but it's only about the tree octopus, not about who is writing this. And those links that we found, they're not even to anything that is credible. And pictures don't necessarily imply credibility. Like I said, technology is becoming a big part of today's society, so Photoshop is very easy for anyone to access and make it seem as though there actually are tree octopi. And lastly, authors of this website don't give sources for their information. While they give links to other related sites, they're not sources as to where they found their information, and the pictures don't even have sources. So how do we find these sources that we need to look at? We're going to look for books in the library and Barnes & Noble. Both those places tend to have people who can tell you which sources are going to be most credible and can assist you in looking for what you need with your topic. Academic articles are going to be found with links on our school webpage. On our homepage, just go to For Students, and right there will be a link to academic articles where you will sign in with your EID. And then lastly, just like we've looked at in class, you'll refine Google searches or other web searches to scholarly sources only, and just make sure you look at the web address to make sure it's a .gov, .org, or .edu. So for homework, I expect you all to find a source, at least 3 sources, and bring them to class, one of each. So a book, an academic article, and a website. And we will determine whether or not these are credible sources for your topics. And we will get into groups and talk about why and why not. And lastly, just to keep in mind, we do need to know how to use our sources. So, what you want to do is you use it to support your argument, support your claim, give an objective and stance, and even frame your argument. So you can use a source within your